Hey, welcome back to the second part of the third episode of How I Met My Beer. We will continue with our interaction with Sapna and Narayan, along with the tasting of beers at Gaste. Please do not forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
Alright, so this is the Belgian Blonde, and we've named this beer James Blonde. Okay, so again, coming back to catchy names.
So is the blonde something to do with the color?
For sure, but it's also style.
Right.
So here you're showcasing some of the esters in the yeast. So strain selection of the yeast will give you. So when you smell it, you'll get some interesting aromas. You'll get like spice. You'll get floral. You get fruity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things are classic Belgian Blonde signatures.
Sure.
And then when you drink it, you'll get this round mouthfeel as you drink it. It's very easy drinking.
It's a bit fruity when you start smelling it.
Yeah, so those are the esters that the yeast is made to exhibit. And by the way, this is 7.8% alcohol by volume, so it can bring you to your knees.
So there is one perception among people that the darker the beer gets, it is stronger.
Yeah, absolutely not. Color has absolutely no. For example, this.
Well, I think this is lighter than what we had
You're absolutely right. So in
the German
case,
lager.
So there is no connection to color and strength. There is no connection to color and bitterness.
Okay.
There is no connection to color and mouthfeel, for example.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, this is how people feel, right? So you can make a really light beer really strong.
Okay.
And you can make a really dark beer extremely approachable, less bitter, and you will see it when you drink the Uncle Dunkel. You will see.
Okay.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but hops is a cousin of the marijuana family.
I know.
Yeah. So you can get hooked. And honestly, when you drink a hoppy beer for the first time, you're like, oh, this is terribly, it's bitter and all that kind of stuff. And all of us go to the change, and slowly you're like, oh, okay.
This one is a bit bitter.
Bitterness perspective, it's actually quite similar to the other one,
Lager?
the lager. And by the way, you actually bring up a really interesting point. So there is bitterness, and then there is perceived bitterness. And what do I mean by that? So if I have, it's like cooking, right? So I'm dealing with sweet, spice, sour, and salty, right? If I skew salt a little too much, right, you can potentially say, oh, it's too much. Whereas if I add a little bit of extra sourness, the perceived saltiness goes down. Same thing happens with beer. If I have a bitter beer, but if I have a nice malty backbone, it can balance out the bitterness way better than a less malty backbone can. So in the other one, the maltiness was more,
Okay.
and therefore you are not perceiving the bitterness as much as you're perceiving it
Probably.
here.
Yeah.
You will actually even taste some of the blonde taste as you, but that's the way.
That's a feature.
That's a feature.
Yeah. They're good. So I mean, pardon my ignorance.
No,
I'm just learning
no.
about a lot about beer today.
All of us
I'm gonna
are learning. All of
I'm
us
gonna
are
be overloaded with information on beer, and I'm gonna just spread it out to all my friends. Absolutely. Yeah.
So the next Tripster meeting here, you're going to be doing a talk on beer making.
Ouch. Okay. Then I need to have one more session with you.
So interestingly, I think 2011 is when the microbrewery scene actually started.
10. Yeah, 10 onwards. So
The Brewery Club probably is the
yeah.
first.
So at about that time when we were kind of sending these bottles. So in 2008, 2009, when we got these bottles from Belgium, we were primarily a distribution and marketing company because we're not manufacturing any beer here. And I was particularly keen that we manufacture here because you really need to do this at a volume. Until you make it with your own hands, you'll never really get it, right? You won't really figure it out. So in 2008-9, when we had our bottles, I always knew we had to manufacture here. But that aside, we also started lobbying the government and started working in the excise department to find out why microbreweries are not allowed, right? Arvind Raju from Beer Club, us and a bunch of others were all talking to the government, and Arvind got his first license. So Beer Club was the first microbrewery start on Whittle Road, right? And soon thereafter, Arbor, Windmills, Toit, and then two microbreweries that we were associated with, which is Big Brew Sky in Sarjapur and Brew Sky in JP Nagar. All pretty much started in that time frame, 10, 11, 12.
That was a wave. All,
That was like
back
a wave,
to wave.
right? Yeah. So this was the initial wave of microbreweries that happened. So, and there were what 6 or 7 that happened, and for the longest time it stayed at a small number. And at Brewsky we were brewing. So our brewer, who is by the way India's first woman brewmaster, has now been with us for 9 years. So Vidya was brewing at both the places, and it was just ridiculous how well we were doing. I mean, it was just crazy. And so I knew there was something here. We had to do something with craft beer. But then again, I mean, our customers would come and tell us, love your beers, hate the Bangalore traffic. Please make it available closer to where we live.
Absolutely.
Which is why we said, okay, we'll set this up because this is a full-fledged brewery. It's not a microbrewery, so we can actually sell beyond premise. We set this up in 2006. So Mohan Alapat, who is my business partner now, so he joined us a few years prior, and then we started working on this project. And so this avatar of Geist started in 2017. August 5th is when we shipped our first kegs out of here. But I was actually quite clear even then that seeing tanks behind a glass wall, it was charming in the beginning, but at the end of the day, I think what people all over the world want is great product. They want great product, they want great service, they want a good ambiance.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I think people just want to feel good about going out. And so I realized early on that it was this thing about setting up a microbrewery, that craze of setting up a microbrewery was going to go away, because at the end of the day, people want consistent product. Right. And not a lot of people here in India, the background or the learnings or, possibly even the passion to actually sit down and brew a batch of beer. And so we knew that maybe a brewery like this, which is selling fresh beer in kegs to restaurants, clubs, hotels, pubs across Bangalore, would be the answer. While there are but I was proven wrong for a while, because it grew from 6 or 7 to now 67. But I think the pace is slowing down now, and a lot of people are realizing that it's competitive. You also need to make great product, and it's not easy to consistently make great beer. And so that's why we had, pre-COVID, we were in 102 locations, and we were sending fresh beer out with trucks here, cold transport to all these restaurants, and they had a variety of beers that sometimes even the microbreweries didn't have that range of beers. So, and the other thing about microbreweries is in Karnataka, the rule is that you have to set it up in 10,000 square feet of space. And so I think the logic that the government had at that time was they didn't want any fly-by-night guys to come and set up in a 200 square foot place, set up something and create bad beer and whatever else. So I think the logic of that time was to ensure quality by making sure that you had people really put in money to make this product. So anyway, so our guess proved right, because eventually we had a bunch of these restaurants, clubs, hotels, all of whom had Geist beer. And people are saying, you know what, I'm getting the variety that I need. I don't have to set this up. I don't have to deal with brewers who might leave. So quite a few people chose to do what we call tap rooms, as opposed to setting up a microbrewery. This is your classic German Dunkel Weizen, and Dunkel in German means dark, and Weizen means wheat. So it's a dark wheat beer. Again, this is going to showcasing against the malt. So when you drink this beer, you'll get coffee, cocoa, caramel, chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, whatever on your tongue. But it's a very easy drinking, nice beer, goes down very smooth, and hopefully you'll just get more roast as opposed to any bitterness per se. So yeah, so this is modeled after a beer called Gutmann, which is one of the beers I look up to.
Oh, okay, cool.
So the roastiness comes obviously from the malting. Malting is a process of germinating the grain. So there's a difference between barley and malted barley, wheat and malted wheat. And the process is where you germinate the grain. When you germinate the grain, the endosperm, which is the carbohydrate reserve or the womb of the grain, starts to convert itself into simpler forms of carbohydrates, and also makes the carbohydrate more accessible to the brain. Right. Which is why they say sprouted dal or sprouted bhaji is good for you, because you've got some levels.
It's easy to digest.
Easier to digest.
The enzymes can break it.
Simpler sugars that you're dealing with, right?
Right.
And so the same process happens here. You malt the grain, which is convert the grain into simpler forms and make it more accessible. And then you dry it. And then you dry it, you have these reactions called Maillard reactions. And so when you enter our malt room, it smells of Horlicks and Bonvita. It's just beautiful. So that's the smell that you get: black currant, malty, Horlicks, Bonvita kind of flavors coming through. And then you take that and then you roast it one level, you kiln it one level, you get caramel malts, and then you get, you roast that even higher, you get dark malt, for example, or chocolate malt, as they call it. So,
The head is pretty nice.
I'm a chocolate fan. Also.
you are.
You're getting the flavor of chocolate?
Are you getting dark or white chocolate or milk chocolate?
I'm getting a dark.
And you'll be surprised. Other people will perceive milk. Some people even perceive white chocolate taste. So, but that's the beauty of the human palate. Right?
Correct.
It's like so many things.
Yeah, it's basically triggering some memory. It's not.
And by the way, even on the aroma front, us human beings, we have what, 50 different aromas that we can describe. But there are thousands and thousands of aromas that we can't even associate with.
So I think that's one thing with beer. The more you taste it, the more descriptors you have for
Absolutely.
it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, at some point in time, you're going to go beyond, you can say pineapple, red fruit, this, that, banana, clove, whatever. After that, what, right?
Correct.
Mother Nature has got thousands and thousands of these aromas.
Berries and.
Absolutely.
And then your mind is like completely messed up, like, "Ye kya hai?" And then I can't describe it. Right?
So a larger content of this is water.
Yeah, so 80%, 85% of beer is water.
Yeah. So is there anything that you'd like to share with us about what?
Beer was defined by the water of the region. A Pilsner came from the region of Pils in the Czech Republic. The water there was really, really soft, so it was conducive to making a lighter beer, like a lager. So Pilsner is a classic lager from the Czech Republic.
Correct.
Germany, right? If you look at UK, England was known for stouts because the water in the Trent River was very, very heavy with chemicals and minerals, conducive to making a darker beer. So water defined the style of the beer and made certain beers famous. In India, we don't have the luxury of a beautiful river or whatever near our brewery, so we have to make do with groundwater. So what we do is we basically take the water and we do something called reverse osmosis. So we remove everything from the water,
Then
and then
add.
we add back the chemicals that are specific to this particular style.
It's slightly acidic to the side, or.
No, you can do, so there's sulfates and chlorides that you balance out.
Okay.
So by the way, a higher sulfate content, a lower chloride content will give you can expose the bitterness of the beer a lot more. Or more of a chloride content, less of a sulfate content, you can balance out, you can bring out the maltiness of the beer more.
Oh,
And everything in
interesting.
between.
So, Sapna,
Yeah.
you work for a daily,
Yeah.
you do the tripsters,
Yeah.
you are also traffic warden.
Yeah. I am.
You're a traffic warden?
I'm a senior traffic warden. Yeah.
Really?
With Whitefield
Wow.
Police Station.
Amazing.
You are a mother, you are a wife, daughter. How do you put all these things and then drink beer?
She can do it only because she drinks beer.
We got it. So yeah, I think for every woman, she's a multitasker. So I mean, all these profiles or all these portfolios come by default. It comes by inheritance for us. You have to be a mother, you have to be a sister, you have to be a wife, you have to be a daughter-in-law, right? All of this is, anyways, there as a part of life.
Part of the package.
Yeah, it's a part of the package. So that comes by naturally, very naturally. So the question that arises is, how do you balance the two? Because as I told you, I'm very, very passionate about travel, about doing a lot of adventurous stuff, working for the women, a bit of a women empowerment thing. So by the way, I mean, I'll just because I don't think you know about it. I'm also a council member for Witty, which is the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So I work with them also for Karnataka tourism. So yeah, I mean, I work with them also towards development of Karnataka tourism and culture. So we work along with the Department of Tourism for this particular thing. So I think it's all about the passion. I think if you are passionate about doing something, you'll find time. You just need to do proper time management, figure out how you're going to manage or balance each and everything.
So, what is your journey? So, that we didn't speak. So, from, I think you studied in Bombay.
Rajasthan.
Rajasthan.
Yeah.
So how did you?
I'm actually brought up totally in Rajasthan. Up to the 10th standard, I studied in Mount Abu with the Sophia Girls Convent. I did my graduation in Udaipur. I did my MBA in Chennai. That's where I met my better half in college, and we got married post our MBA. So that time we were in Chennai. Then we moved to Bangalore because he got a job here. I took a sabbatical during my pregnancy. Post that, I joined ICICI Bank. I worked with them for 2 years. Then I got into media. Then it was no looking back. Then I was only into media. I worked for Big FM. I worked for Radio City. Now I'm with the Hindu. 3 years back, I had participated in a car rally with Times. They do this Times Women's Drive every year, which goes from Bangalore to Goa. So that was the first time I participated with them, and then I was like, okay, I mean, what's the big deal? Isme kya hai? I think why should I be a participant here? Instead, for my gang of girls, I can actually create, a platform like this, which will be with more of passion, with more of less of the commercial aspect into it. So that's how I thought of starting Tripsters. And I have two more friends of mine who, three of us together do run this. So we spoke to a lot of girls. We asked them, what is it you want? If at all we do something like this. It was more of a friendly conversation, and we got to know that girls wanted a platform where they can feel free. So while they're taking care and while they're busy with their monotonous life, taking good care of family, work, everything, at the same time, they wanted a little space for themselves, right? You need to be yourself. When you're a daughter-in-law, you're in a different mode. When you're a wife, you're in a different mode. When you're a mother, you behave differently. But when is it you behave the way you want to behave, right? In a carefree manner. So, yeah, so I mean, this was one platform we created for those women. So, when we do these overnighters, everyone is like free, just like a free bird. You do anything, you drink, I mean, you enjoy, you have fun, you dance, music, and just be yourself. Be that small kid that you used to be, some 20 years back, 30 years back.
Kamacitra, and when you smell it, you'll get raw mango, tropical fruit, pineapple, red berries, all that stuff come through your nose. And this is a beer you
Oh, yes.
showcase the hops, right?
Oh, yes.
I think the aroma itself gets me high.
So, oh, this is brilliant actually.
I thought with a fruity smell, it might be nice and sweet. Sorry.
Sweet is not particularly favorable.
It's not a beer.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. My bad.
This is an IPA.
So, American IPAs can be clear, can be hazy, it's up to you. And so, we choose to make a hazy IPA.
So something like an East Coast IPA?
Well, not particularly, because East Coast IPAs are, from a taste perspective, you will see a lot more of a lingering, juicy kind of flavor on your tongue, as opposed to this. By the way, just to give you an example of people's perception, IPA is a cult crazy beer in the US. 99% of the microbreweries in the US, craft breweries in the US, make an IPA.
IPA.
But
What is this IPA actually? This is the abbreviation for something?
it stands for India Pale Ale.
Okay.
This was a beer that used to be brought by the British into India for sale to British soldiers, etc.
Correct.
etc. I mean, the rumor is, and this is actually not true, the rumor is that the brewer actually added extra hops in order to preserve the beer to make it to India. And by the way, I'm as guilty of
Oh, is it? It's
so basically, it was just the fact that there is no real record anywhere in history that says that this is a beer that was made specifically for India. It was not.
oh, okay.
It was a pale ale that people, so the British made, and there were a bunch of these different breweries sending it across to India. But this Bao Brewing, I think Bao Brewery, he had a really close connection with the East India Company, and because of that connection, he was able to send these beers here. So there's no specific mention of a beer being made for India
Okay.
as an India Pale Ale. It just morphed into this, from what I'm able to gather.
So is that extra hop as a preservative was also a myth?
It definitely helps. No, that is, it's not a myth. But the question that it was made specifically for India is not true.
Okay.
It just so happened it came to India.
Hmm.
Brewery, because of his connections with the East India Company, and by the way, they're actually located very close to the East India Company headquarters.
Okay.
I think it was close to Trent, whatever. But anyway, the point is it was somewhere close by there.
Okay.
And over the course, it just morphed into this, but it was not made specifically for India, from what I've been able to gather.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Maybe being an expert, you should be able to tell us, is there any connection between the kind of food you eat with the kind of beer you drink?
So there is they say pairing. So, and by the way, this whole pairing thing happened because of wine. In the case of craft beer, I think it's really why I believe this is a perfect drink for India is because India is not one country, it's multiple countries in one country.
Yeah.
10 kilometers from here,
You have a different cuisine.
Absolutely, absolutely.
then you have spiciness, right? We eat spicy foods, this is who we are. We're a hot country, right? And so if you look at this, the beverage that can pair best with these parameters, it's probably craft beer because the variety is tremendous. Wine, you have variety, but it's limited. You can't, beyond the Cabernet Sauvignon or the Merlot or the Shiraz or whatever else, you've got a limited. This can
Right.
go infinite, right? It's cold. It works well for a hot country like us, like ours. So I believe it is the best beverage to pair with Indian food. That said, though, I think at the end of the day, HIMMB rule says whatever food you eat shouldn't overwhelm the taste of the beer, and whatever beer you drink shouldn't be overwhelmed by the food that you eat. Right? So, general rule of thumb: lighter beers, lighter food; hoppier beers, more bitter beers, more robust.
Spicy.
But at the end of it all, my belief is whatever you feel like, and
Have
what
it.
makes you happy, drink it.
Like in Kerala, it's just one lemon pickle, that is enough.
Touching.
Touching.
Chakra.